Hi, my name's Chris Brookman from Back to Earth, and we're going to go through the installation of our wood fibre board systems today. We've got our first layer on. We've got a joint here actually directly beneath the window. That's fine, it's more than 300mm away from the window. Now the board that we're going to put around this window, we want to basically cut the window opening out of as much out of the middle of the board as we can. So we've got this board cut already in true Blue Peter style. Right, so we've got our board in position. We've got our horizontal joint well away from the corner. We've got our vertical joint again more than 300mm away from the corner. So that's an ideal junction. There will be times when you actually can't avoid having joints within 300mm of the corner of the windows. There's two ways of overcoming that. The first is to actually cut the boards along your row, and so you can move them to a position whereby you will avoid getting vertical joints near the corners, and then you simply glue the cut joints together, ideally on a stud. That's one way of doing it. The other way of doing it is actually to glue the joints around that corner with the UDI glue. And that will basically provide enough strength at that point. That really is the worst case scenario. So this really is the best advice that we can give, and that is to avoid joints around the windows. The reason for that is that movement around the windows causes stress in the boards and then into the render, and increases the likelihood of cracking. And basically the most likely point of the render to fail would be the corners of the windows. They're the points of highest stress. We're just going to gently fix this. We're going to only loosely fix it. Just with a screw there. So that's held in place, and then we're actually working away from that window in both directions. Again, if you've got another window further on, you'll be working towards that and cutting as you go, and the same in the other direction. When you're putting the boards in, it's useful not to really tighten the fixings below too much, because they will tighten the boards up to the frame and make it very difficult to get the board above actually into position, because the tongue will be too close to the timber frame. So if you put those in lightly, get your boards above in roughly the right place, a bit of movement, and then you can fix this one gently again and then tighten up the fixings below, and you want to sort of repeat that process as you go up the wall. When you're putting the boards together, there is roughly it's about a 10mm tongue and groove around the boards. You're aiming to get the boards as tight as possible with an absolute maximum gap of about 3 to 4mm. So if you've got any gaps bigger than that, then you need to possibly move the boards around so you can get a tighter fit. In a full board, we're looking to use 3 fixings per stud. So if we come up from the bottom by 50–60mm and put our fixing in there, again putting the cap on, one in the middle roughly. If you do over tighten, it's just simply a case of coming back a little bit. Very simple to move around. Looking at the head of the Unger screws, you've actually got quite fierce teeth on there which really grip into the boards and actually enable you to move the screw in and out and actually adjust the position of the board slightly. So if you do over tighten it, it's simply just a case of drawing that back. It's not a problem. One useful tip as you're actually coming up the wall is actually just to use a pencil and just quickly put a mark where your studs are. So if you're not following along straight away, putting all the fixings in, it's very easy to see each time. You can simply put a level or even a piece of batten between the two points, draw a line, and then you know exactly where your timber studs are. So simply just a case of a quick mark on the top edge of the boards each time, and then you know up until you render exactly where the studs are. A very useful tool for working with wood fibre is this. It's called a grid plane. It's a very simple tool, and what it can do is basically repair sections of board or plane down sections of board where you've damaged it. So here we've damaged the tongue. It's going to be very difficult to put another board on top of that because the wood fibre is in the way. So you simply rub along the edge there, brush that off, and There you go, good as new. On our second course, we're actually going to have our vertical joint bang in the middle of the window. So this is a 600mm window, so that gives us just 300mm away from the corners. And we're working again around the window and away from the window. And now we simply fix that board. Normally when you're doing this, you'd have at least two people. You'd have one person fixing the boards and one person cutting the boards. And it's probably quite useful to quickly tack the board in place and then measure up the next board. I mean, in this case we're using a full board, but whenever you get up to junctions, quite easy just to quickly measure the board, tell the other person what needs to be cut out and work that way. Again, using the grid plane, it's worth just going over the joints. Any loose material that might be sticking out of the joints, which is going to push out through the render or make lumps in the render, it's quickly worth taking all those off with. Making sure that you've got a nice flat surface to render onto.